Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello. Are we getting sound?
Are we getting sound?
Yes, we are.
Are we getting
Awesome.
sound? Yes, we are. Awesome.
Got to check on my phone here. So, hello, everybody. A little home visit on a rare rainy day in Los Angeles, but very appreciated. When I started this thing of talking about Scientology, hey, Yeshua, almost like Jesus, huh? When I started this thing about Scientology, um, I always looked at the downfall of Scientology in a bigger context. The downfall of Scientology needs to be seen in a kind of total collapse of the matrix. Scientology is like the canary in the coal mine. Scientology is something that's like so obvious, so obviously bullshit, that we, it's hard not to notice the bullshit of Scientology unless you're in Scientology, I guess. Then it's really hard. Or you're just so intimidated you stay in. But the thing that I've been saying ever since I started this, and the whole reason I did it, to review, because I don't assume anybody's been here before, I have two backgrounds. One background academically is political science. I studied political science almost to the doctoral degree. I was in a doctoral program for 6 years. And also, I'm a healer. So I'm in that woo-woo world of energy. And I find the two complement each other well, because if I was just the woo-woo guy with none of that practical background, people might not take me as seriously as they do. Not that they do. And so um okay, did this fix it? Okay, it looks like it might have. Sorry, everybody. Sorry about those who were with me, and then I messed up the whole thing. Anyway, I shall start over. Sorry. Now I think I got some sound going. Anyway, I just didn't know how to reconnect once it disconnected. So let's see how this poll is going. No, we're not going to end it. So the deal is, on a technological level, we're in a situation where the internet is exposing everything. But to give you a little of my woo-woo version of everything, the internet exposing everything is a prelude to us being in a higher state. So imagine if everybody was telepathic. Well, if everybody was telepathic, then you would know if people were lying, you would know everything about them. So if everybody was telepathic, it would cause a major freak out in the world. We would know all the scandals. We would know all the dirt going on if everybody was telepathic, right? If everybody was telepathic, it would be really hard to scam anybody. It would be really hard to get people to join Scientology, for example. So my contention is that we are moving in our evolutionary process. We're moving to a place where everybody's telepathic. And so what's the middle ground for this movement towards everybody being telepathic? The internet. The internet is kind of like a middle ground between the old reality of almost nobody's telepathic and the future reality of almost everybody's telepathic. The middle zone, the thing to get you used to the new situation, that's the internet. Okay? If everybody was telepathic, people would be freaking out. They would find out, like, oh, that's not my real father. You know, that's not my mother. They would know that their boss was hoping they don't ask for a raise because they really don't want to lose them, right? There'd be all this stuff going on if everybody was telepathic. So if everybody's telepathic, the old system would break down, like all the sales routines, all the scams, most of the religions and the cults and whatever. They would all break down if everybody was telepathic. And so we don't want them all to break down right away. We want a little bit of a runway to nirvana here. So the reason that I was interested in Scientology for all these years is Scientology is a perfect test case for the unraveling of the matrix. Okay? Scientology is such an obvious matrix. Take it from me, Davey Mismanaged. Scientology is a crazy ass matrix. It's delusion. It is arm twisting. It is mind fuckery. Okay? Scientology is evil. But Scientology is less evil in the way that it's so damn obvious. What might be a lot more evil are things like the British royal family. Okay? The British royal family, we could postulate, is potentially more evil than Scientology even. and definitely more hypocritical because they get to sit in these nice clothes and these big palaces and pretend like they're better than everybody while they're also just humble public servants just here to set a great image for everybody. So yeah, sure. So the matrix is collapsing. Scientology is the canary in the coal mine. Scientology is the thing that shows the direction of the collapse. So, Scientology has always been fascinating to me as a student of political science and also a student of spirituality, manifestation, rising frequencies. I know that sounds really weird to a lot of people. But like I said, the example of if everybody was telepathic, it would be hard to scam them. So, yeah, if everybody was telepathic, it'd be really hard to scam them. And like I said, the middle ground is the internet. The internet is exposing things, and I think it's getting us ready for the time when everybody's more and more and more telepathic. Everybody's seeing through the bullshit right now. They're seeing through the bullshit of not only Trump, but the Democrats too. Okay. Because believe me, the Democrats are out there thinking Trump is getting totally discredited by the Epstein thing, which is true. But the fact is, the Democrats were doing the same damn thing, hiding the Epstein files. Trump was stupid because he said, well, we're going to uncover the files. And it was like a bluff. It was like telling somebody, I dare you to cross this line in the sand, knowing that you couldn't beat them up if they did, but you bluff them. As a tall guy, I've done that one a few times. Like knowing somebody could totally kick my ass, I acted like, "Oh yeah, fight. That would be great." And since they were smaller than me and maybe a little intimidated by my confidence, they didn't start a fight. But the thing is, the whole Trump failure here was like having MAGA go out and say, we're going to unveil all this corruption. We're going to show the world the corruption. And then as soon as Trump got in, he realized, oh, we can't open them damn files. I'm all over the place in there. But the thing is, so is Clinton. And Biden had 4 years to open the files. And Obama had years to open the files before Trump. So to some degree, they're all complicit in this matrix, just like with Scientology. You have Scientology, which is undeniably pretty damn evil. Okay, so Scientology is pretty evil, but then you have the LAPD backing up Scientology. Why? Probably because they're getting paid and they're getting little goodies, little access to some celebrity stuff. They get to sing at the Scientology talent show or whatever, right? And so the cops and Scientology and local government and the media who will not report on Scientology, they all form this little matrix of evil. And the British royal family and Epstein and Trump and the press who doesn't want to talk about it and all the billionaires who are in on it, who have the power to shut it down for 20 years. They don't want to talk about it. But we want to talk about it. It's all over the internet. There is no hiding from the Epstein scandal. There is no hiding from the fact that Scientology is dying. And then we have, for example, the same kind of systems collapse happening in Russia. Putin was running a kleptocracy, meaning that the higher ups were stealing from the entire economy. And, like I heard something like, don't quote me on numbers, I'm not the numbers guy, but for example, like the minister of defense in Russia was putting like 25% of the defense budget in his pocket. And therefore, all these guns that were supposed to be purchased by the Russians, it was just on paper. They weren't purchasing the weapons. They were putting the money in their pocket. And then Putin thinks like, oh, we have this many weapons, so we can start this war. But you don't have the damn weapons. You don't have as much stuff as you think you have because everybody's been skimming off the top. So you have a situation for Russia like the Ukraine war, and it exposes all the bullshit. So everywhere in the world, the matrix is collapsing under the weight of its own bullshit. And everywhere around the world, people are starting to see the truth. And people are starting to speak up about the truth. So when I got into protesting Scientology, I didn't just look at it as a Scientology thing. I look at it as it happens that Scientology, the Hollywood recruiting center, is a 10-minute walk from my house. So back in the 60s, they had that whole thing around protesting. Think globally, act locally. Well, locally for me is Scientology. That's one branch of the matrix that I can walk to. I can drive by, I can flip out a camera, and I can show the ridiculousness of the cult of Scientology so that the world can see it. And let's see, Scientology and Putin are tied. Please vote in the poll. Who's going down first? Scientology, the British royal family, the American two-party system, or Putin. And so far, we have Putin and Scientology tied at 33% each. So put in your vote, call your friends, have them vote too. Blatant plug. So anyway, like I'm saying, all right, BS Incinerator. How's it going, dude? Yes, everybody please hit the like. Exactly. So the matrix is collapsing on all levels. And here's one funny thing. It's not really about picking sides. Like, for example, with the Democrats and the Republicans with the Epstein scandal, it's not, I think the Democrats just think, oh, we're going to sail to victory now. To some degree, they are going to sail to victory. But if they think that they can beat Trump or beat the Republicans and then they can go sit on their asses and rest on their laurels, it ain't going to work. Because what's going to happen is even if the Democrats flip the whole system, then everybody's going to go after their bullshit. Okay, there's going to be nowhere to hide your bullshit as the matrix collapses. That's just the deal, okay? You're not going to get out of this matrix, okay? It's not going to happen. They're going to sit on their laurels. Yeah, they are. And then they're going to be investigated. Okay, here's another deal. Israel. Time to piss everybody off about Israel again. But I used to be a very strong Zionist. I lived in Israel for almost 6 months. I worked the land of Israel. I converted to Judaism at age 11, had my bar mitzvah, and I was gung ho. You know, they call it the zeal of the convert. Ooh, Scientology's really pulling ahead. What a shocker. Hey, hello, Sweden. Hey, Sverige. So the whole Israel thing, that's another matrix that is collapsing. Sorry, Israel. Okay, because the matrix of Israel was based on we almost got wiped out by the Nazis. We need our own country so we can be safe. Okay, I get you. So we're just going to take this uninhabited land, not uninhabited, okay? And you know, in the past, I was on board for the whole Jewish thing about Zionism. But the funny thing about a lot of Zionism is that it's a lot of atheists, Jews, thinking that God gave Israel to them. So it's like the Israel thing is a matrix. It's a matrix of you cannot criticize the policies of the state of Israel, or you are going to be labeled anti-Semitic, and you're going to be kicked out of polite society. You're going to be blackballed, blacklisted, and all the rest. And so the thing is, there are critiques of Israel that are not allowed in America that are totally being discussed in Israel. Israel, at least for Jews, is a democracy. And they have heated discussions about how things should go. And they are not all on Netanyahu's side, right? But in America and other countries, debate is shushed. So, you know, what's been coming up is that the power of the Israel lobby is being exposed, and it's making people very uncomfortable. So it's another matrix. I'm not saying Israel needs to go away. I'm not saying anything of the kind, but I'm saying that there is a matrix of stuff that we weren't not allowed to talk about or even think about or even consider. And that matrix is collapsing. Just like Scientology is collapsing, just like the Russian Putin-led kleptocracy is crashing down. Because these systems of coercion and control, just like Scientology is, that system doesn't work anymore because of the internet, and in my view, because there is a spiritual ascension going on. But I'm not trying to talk you guys into that. I don't need that to make my point. I can just say, well, somehow the matrix is collapsing. So Scientology is a really fun little viewpoint, vantage point to watch the matrix collapse. So's the British royal family. So's the American two-party system. So is the Ukraine war. All of this stuff is showing a system that is no longer viable, that is Eric from Chattanooga. So Scientology is the perfect stand-in for all these other things that are much bigger than Scientology. Scientology is the cartoonish version, so we could see the Matrix collapse in comic book form, so that we can understand the basic principles of matrices collapsing. Okay, it's fun as shit. When I drive up, not putting it on you, when I drive up to Scientology and I point my camera at them and they're talking to somebody on the street and I say Xenu, they run. Why? Can you imagine if I drove up to a church and I pointed my camera at them and I said, Jesus, 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 or Joshua, or Isaiah, or anything like that, and they're going to run away, freaking out? Is that really going to happen? Yeah, man. Hopefully, good things can be rebuilt after these systems have collapsed. You know, there's a pattern about how systems collapse, and unfortunately, the in between of one system collapsing and the new system thriving can get a little dicey. And that's something that the world is probably going to be going through. And so, that sucks, but you got to go through it. It's like if you take the tumor out, you got to go to the recovery room and you got to recover from the operation, but it's still good that the tumor's out. Well, one of the tumors in the world is the kind of exploitation of the Epstein, Trump, Prince Andrew crew. Okay. That's one of the major things going on. And, there are quite a few other ones going on as well. So, let's look at some of those. There is hold on. I got some so since I am actually in Hollywood, I can talk about Hollywood, the matrix of Hollywood collapsing. Okay. I'm sitting right in the middle of it. And the whole Hollywood thing, it's very much like the British royal family in this way. It's a manufactured glamour thing. It's about image. It's about it's a false front. Okay. Hollywood was never as glamorous as they tried to make it. And the royal family isn't either. The royal family, on one level, it's a bunch of entitled inbreds in a big house with more money than they know what to do with. It is a low frequency situation. And we were all bullshitted, just like people get bullshitted into a cult like Scientology. We were all bullshitted into thinking it was real, just like Hollywood. Hey, I love movies. I love Hollywood on one level. But, you know, all the glamour was hiding a dirty underbelly of corruption, of sexual abuse, just like the Epstein situation. Epstein and Hollywood are not very different. There are a lot of similarities here. And so when we start untangling this matrix, when we start seeing, like, think of the Ricky Gervais speech at the Golden Globes where he ripped Hollywood a new one. It was glorious. That's what it looks like when the matrix starts going down. When the matrix starts going down, it looks like Ricky Gervais's speech at the Golden Globes. And that's one of my favorite things to mess with the matrix and Scientology. Mockery. It's not about getting pissed. It's about laughing. Scientology is a joke. Pam Bondi under oath in the House of Representatives wanting to talk about the Dow Jones Index to hide from the fact of what's going on with little girls on Epstein Island. That is pathetic. That is a joke. That is to be laughed at and mocked. You can't take that seriously. Prince Andrew, did you guys hear the thing about Prince Andrew requiring like all these teddy bears to be put on his bed in a certain way, like 100 teddy bears have to be in the exact perfect order, and if they're not, he goes completely ballistic on the help. Can you imagine that? A dude in his 60s is screaming about his teddy bears have to be displayed on his bed in the perfect order. What the fuck, man? What the fuck? Right? But is Prince Andrew much different than Davy Miscavige? I almost said my own name. You know, they do have resemblance. So weird. The screen is flipped. So I can't find stuff. It's all opposite. So anyway, the matrix is going down. So what do we have? We have the American two-party system. We have Scientology, of course. We have Putin. We have Epstein. We have the British government collapsing. We have the Norwegian government and royal family in total turmoil. We have things going on in France with the billionaires and whatever. Okay. One thing about this matrix collapsing, and again, Scientology is the canary in the coal mine. Scientology shows us in a cartoonish version what's going on. So, but look at all the other realms where it's going on. What's happening with Scientology kind of started also years ago with the Catholic Church being exposed. But that's not finished. That's not fully fixed. There's no way. And so when we focus on a cult like Scientology, the Swedish king is too stupid to be involved in shenanigans. Yeah, when I lived in Sweden, I remember they didn't really, at least as far as I know, they didn't have a concept, or we didn't either, of dyslexia. And they told me something where the king went, like, had to sign something for a monument or whatever, and he spelled his name wrong or something. And then later on, like 20 years later, I heard about dyslexia, and I was like, oh, he's probably just dyslexic. But actually, I met the king of Sweden, and he complimented me on my Swedish abilities. So that was a memory. And then I got to go see the Nobel Prize and see him give out the Nobel Prize like the next day or 2 days later. That was a big memory. So anyway, enough about that. Another matrix, you know. And when I was in Sweden, I would think, why do you guys have a royal family? You're like socialists here, you know. They were then, at least. A lot more capitalistic now. But anyway, all these cults are going down. The cult of Epstein, the cult of Democrats versus Republican, but they're really the same shit. They're two, two sides of the same coin, basically. And so we have on and on and on. We have all these other things, right? Hollywood is being exposed. Governments are being exposed worldwide. The corruption and the hollowness of the Putin regime is being totally exposed. The impact of lobbying on politics, the corruption is being exposed worldwide, all over the place. And for me, since Scientology is right down the street, that's a good place for me to go and put some of my efforts into, far less than before. But there's not much to do because they're so damn dead. All I can really do is show up for 1 minute, for 1 second, and they run inside and they hide until I've been gone for at least, half an hour. I don't know. I don't know when they come back out. But eventually they do. And sometimes I like to, hide around the area and then come back and get them again. But what's funny is all these cults, all these evildoers, they can't stand the scrutiny. They can't stand us looking at them doing their stuff. And so Prince Andrew might go to jail. He might hurt himself. But certainly Prince Andrew, the Andrew formerly known as Prince, will be a laughing stock for the rest of his life and beyond. Just like David Miscavige is and doesn't even probably fully realize it, but he knows a little bit. He's not 100% oblivious to the fact that he is a joke of worldwide proportions. So the king is stupid and dyslexic. Okay. No, I thought maybe he was smarter, the Swedish king we're talking about from the comments. I thought maybe he wasn't as dumb as people were making him out to be once I knew about the dyslexia. But now that you say he's stupid and dyslexic, I'm not going to argue. Because I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, they're all inbred. The whole European royalty is a bunch of inbreds, right? Yeah, scammers always hate it when somebody takes a careful look at them. Of course, right? Another one, just a funny one. I don't know if you guys watch those YouTube channels where they mess with the scammers in India and Pakistan and wherever that are trying to get people to buy gift cards and all of that. And they call in and they hack their systems and they mess with them and waste their time and all that. It's awesome. It's amazing, right? And then you have all the First Amendment auditors that are going out there and, they're just filming in a public place, totally allowed. And then you watch the matrix of cops and church members and corporate security and whatever losing their shit because somebody's pointing a camera at them. Meanwhile, they have 20 cameras at their location pointing out at everybody else, but they can't take it if somebody points the camera at them. The matrix is collapsing, but it takes time for a matrix to collapse, because if it doesn't take time, it becomes a bloody revolution. We don't want that. Those don't end well. You know, people go overboard, people get pissed off. It's bad. So we don't want that to happen. What we want is a nice controlled burn. And so again, Scientology is a peephole into the whole situation. The Epstein thing is the cinematic version. But you look at what this is going to take down. The whole Epstein thing, it's related to the entire US political system. Not only that, it's related to high tech. It's related to banking, international diplomacy. Epstein was in the middle of this damn spider web that touched everything. What can we assume? There are a lot of power-hungry pervs out there. And maybe that's what it is. One thing about Scientology, it seems slightly less perverted than some of the other cults out there. Scientology seems like a little asexual, I would say, compared to other groups. Now, there are scandals of that nature within Scientology. Do not get me wrong. But it doesn't seem, oh yeah, Trump, Epstein, you know, I mean, when the Republican Congressman Massey called it the Epstein administration yesterday or the day before, ouch. They got to be feeling that in the Republican corridors. But the thing is, yeah, the Democrats are going to think this doesn't apply to them. And they're going to get these big wins and they're going to just sail to victory. But here's the thing. Let me give you some of my woo-woo background on this. Okay. Here's what it is. We're moving from 3D to 5D, 4D being time, so you skip. 3D to 5D. What does that mean? It means that we're moving away from a system of polarity, of opposites. We're moving into a more unified thing. The truth is a unified thing, right? The actual truth isn't something that people debate. Like, if you died and had a near-death experience and saw Jesus, God, whatever, you would come and you came back to your body, you'd be like, okay, I know the deal. I've been there. I know what happens after you die, right? It would no longer be a religious thing. I saw a thing online about a preacher who had a near-death experience. When he came back, he said, I don't have any faith anymore because I know what it is. Okay. Well, my point is that we have an illusion of choice, like in America, Democrat, Republican, right? We have an illusion of choice. But in the end, if they're all run by Epstein, what's the choice? And I know that's a little bit of an oversimplification, but if everything is a scam, then which scam you pick doesn't really matter because they're all interconnected, right? Let's say if every religion is a scam, it doesn't matter which religion you believe in because they're all going to take your money. They're all going to bleed you dry, right? If every political party is run by the same donors, yeah, there are differences in what happens, but there are also red lines that neither party will cross, like Epstein. Epstein has been dead for a little while, and before that, he spent 20 years molesting hardcore. Okay, so did the Democrats go out and expose him? No. Bill Clinton flew on his airplane, as I'm sure many other Democrats did. Did the Republicans expose him because he was buddies with Bill Clinton? No. Why not? Neither party went after Epstein until the people made it impossible to ignore the whole thing. And look how hard they're trying to shut it down now. And are the Democrats really going and putting all their efforts into exposing the Epstein stuff? No. I'm not saying they're doing nothing, but I'm saying they realize enough Democrats are going to be implicated that they're just kind of standing back, letting the Republicans the king is so BC Incinerator says, I hope the King of Sweden does not see our boy Magnus's posts. Well, if he could read them, right? That's a big if, right? No. Yeah, a horrible person's a horrible person no matter what political views they have. Exactly. Okay. I mean, one party's going to tell you this, one party's going to tell you that. And what they're really trying to do is they're trying to get you all psyched up and do what they want. But in the end, they all go to the same parties. I remember when I was a kid, I went to a court, just to check it out, check out a trial. And after the trial was done for the day or whatever, the lawyers from opposing sides just started chatting like buddies, talking about like, oh, when are we going to have dinner, like get together with the wives or go golfing or whatever the hell they were talking about. So when I saw these two lawyers from each side being buddies, it kind of freaked me out. I mean, I was a kid. I didn't know the deal, but I was like, they're supposed to hate each other. They're supposed to be fighting each other like to the death, not just doing a little show in front of the judge. And then after that, oh, I'm loving this talk about the Swedish king, I'm not too into the whole king idea. Like, I don't think it's very awesome at all. And if anybody knows about David Icke, you want to see some conspiracy stuff, and you want to see some stuff that's kind of like getting more credence now than ever. The more time that goes by, the more David Icke's ideas are getting popular. And David Icke basically said, the British royal family has reptilian genes. And, I don't know the full, I don't want to say David Icke's thing because he's mischaracterized. But David Icke basically is saying, that the whole system is run by these reptilians that get off on hurting children. And everybody thought, what a ridiculous conspiracy theory. Like for 30 years, people thought That is totally crazy. And then Epstein comes along and it's like, oh, actually, yeah, maybe not so crazy. So I think a lot of people are going to have to give David Icke some big apologies. So the matrix is collapsing. The illusions are being revealed as illusions. As I said before, Scientology is a great way to look at how that's happening, because Scientology is like a test case of a matrix. It's like if you created a matrix in a lab so you could look at how a matrix works, you'd create Scientology. And then you would study like how it grows. The reptiles are using birds as tools for surveillance. Well, they're using everybody's cell phone and computer for sure. So Scientology's like this test case matrix, right? Okay, let's get them in with love bombing. Okay, I can imagine that's what Jeffrey Epstein did. These girls come in and he's like, oh, you're so beautiful, you're awesome, you'll fit right in here. Just what Scientology does. Just what a political party does if they're recruiting somebody from the Ivy League to be a politician, right? Oh, you're amazing. You're brilliant. We need you on our team. Okay. And then just reel them in. Okay. So what do? Scientology, they get you in with the love bombing. Oh, where'd you get that shirt? That's an amazing shirt. You know, I always have a crystal around. So when I would walk by any Scientology thing, they would always comment on my crystal. Okay. They want to get you involved they get you in with a compliment, right? They give you sweetness, right? Then it's like a drug dealer. Now, I never had this, but they would talk about drug dealers that would give you free drugs until you got hooked. And then there'd be a price, right? Well, that's like what Scientology does. Scientology gives you free pats on the back for a while, and then they tell you what the rules are, and then they crack down. So that's what cults do. So Jeffrey Epstein, oh, you're beautiful, young lady. Come on in here. Oh, do you know how to give massages? Okay, well, Jeffrey likes a daily massage. It's very important to him. And then all of a sudden, you're being assaulted in the biggest mansion in Manhattan, like a $60+ million home. And then maybe you're given some money and you could really use some money. And maybe you're threatened, whatever, but you get trapped in that matrix. So we could think a lot of things are occult besides Scientology, right? And they all work in very similar, not mysterious ways. And they're all being exposed. The cults are being exposed. Scientology, Hollywood, Trump, Epstein, British royal family, the political systems everywhere on earth, it seems. Nobody's happy with the politicians. And then they get rid of one side of the political system, and then other opposite side comes in, and then nobody's happy with them either. That's a sign of systems collapse. That's a sign of a paradigm collapse. And as we become more awake about what's really going on, the first stage is seeing all the shit. Because you can't create what I think is a future utopia. I'm a utopian kind of guy, okay? You can't create that if you don't get rid of the rot, if you don't get rid of the crap, okay? Like I said before, it's like if everybody was all of a sudden fully telepathic, it would be chaos because like everything would collapse simultaneously if everything was telepathic. So we got to be eased into the telepathy by the internet, by the exposés of all the crap that's going on out there in the world. Okay, Scientology is collapsing. Royal families are collapsing, especially the UK and Norway. But look at the guy who ran Dubai Ports, one of the biggest corporations on earth, who Epstein sent an email to that said, "Oh, I really loved the torture video you sent me." So that guy had to resign his position. But we don't see a lot of people resigning their positions here. The Crown Princess of Norway had to do a big mea culpa about being connected to Epstein, while I believe her son is on trial or convicted of assault of that nature. So it's endemic. It's in the whole rotten system. And people are waking up. And people are saying, what the fuck, dude? Hey, Prince Andrew, guess what? You're already rich. You can already get women. You got a castle. Okay? You got like guards on horses and shit that tourists are taking pictures of. Okay? Do you have a problem getting women that you have to get slaves? You have to get abducted underage women that who knows what has happened to them? Right, her son is on trial. So what do we have? We have the future queen of Norway, and then her son, which I assume is the future king after her, right? And they're both molesters. They're both rapists. Is that what we're dealing with, Norway? Like you're supposed to be the goober country that has roofs that are made out of grass and, you know, brown goat cheese. That's what you're supposed to be doing, Norway. Okay? You're supposed to look like you yodel, but you don't, right? That's Norway. You look like you yodel, but you don't. That's Norway. But now Norway is like starring in the Epstein files. What the hell, Norway? So it's all coming apart, all the bullshit. And that's why I started with Scientology, because it's down the street. It's convenient and I'm lazy. But also, Scientology is the perfect, what do you call it? It's a facsimile, test case. I don't know. Scientology, microcosm. Scientology is the perfect microcosm. If you want to look at Norway's Sweden's crazy little brother, yeah, and they sure talk funny. If you want to understand the matrix collapsing, but you don't want to have to understand world politics on a huge level, right? Just look at Scientology. Once you understand the collapse of Scientology, that will help you understand the collapse of Hollywood. I mean, one time I had a client for healing work that worked with Diddy, like pretty high up in the Diddy organization. This was years ago. And this person was describing, let's say, a hostile work environment. I had no idea how hostile that work environment was, because this client was telling me, like, yeah, there's a lot of bad shit going on with Diddy, right? But I thought it was like, yelling at your employees, being mean, like not paying them for overtime, stuff like that. I had no idea what it really was. But looking back, it was like that person was kind of trying to give me a hint about it. Kind of indicating, yeah, it's really bad. Like you have no idea. Okay, so that's just the Diddy thing, right? But then how many people were connected to Diddy? And did they all go down? Not yet. But tick tock, as Tori would always say, and still does. So it's like, so we got Hollywood, we got the Diddy thing, we got the Weinstein situation, right? Weinstein was doing his pervy thing for decades, also twisting arms, ruining careers, and then finally, he ends up screwed in jail and still shamelessly trying to bullshit his way out of that. Okay, the British royal family, inbreds, a bunch of inbreds. And now we know they're a bunch of molesting inbreds. And so now that the Queen is gone, nobody gives a shit. Nobody feels the need to protect this. Like, people respected the Queen because she was around since World War II and whatever. Diddy got off far too easy. Yeah. And so many others probably never will be prosecuted. That's why, right, Lori? I totally agree with you. But the thing is, karma will always catch up with you. I saw this thing about a near-death experience. If you look on YouTube for near-death experience videos, it's pretty wild. Now, I do past life regression hypnosis. I'm a hypnotist, and near-death experiences are very parallel. But anyway, this guy was talking about he had a near-death experience, and he experienced being this rich banker and like scammer crook in New York, like in the early 20th century. And when he died, he had to do a life review, and he had to experience all the pain and suffering that his actions caused to other people. And he had to experience it like he was those other people in his life review. And he said it was so horrible. Happy anti-Scientology Day. Absolutely. So, I think karma doesn't really give a shit how long it takes. It's going to get you. Okay. But it's not like a punitive thing. Okay. It's just, it's like it's just a reaction. Like if you, I don't know, I'm seeing like an image of like, if you had something on a rubber band and you pulled it out and then let go, it'd come back and smack you. Right. It's just, it's like physics. Okay. But the thing is, so Hollywood, the music industry, Putin, the whole Russian government, and all that corruption, it's all going down. Okay. Royal families going down. Exposure is happening everywhere. This guy, what's his name? Amir, whatever, the Scientology guy that just quit in Scotland. Amazing. Look at that guy's energy. He's laughing, he's happy. It's a new generation of people quitting Scientology. One thing about that guy, he had family support. He didn't have a whole family in Scientology. So when he got out, Vinny, seeing your name, Vinny, there's like no Vinnies here. One thing I miss about New York, Vinnies. No Vinnies in Hollywood. Not that I've seen. But anyway, so we have all these aspects of the matrix going down. And it's going to keep going. If you notice, the Epstein thing is tied to everything but Scientology. I want to see if there's a Scientology Epstein connection, because somewhere there has to be. I mean, Epstein was just too connected to everything, but maybe even Epstein was like, I'm not fucking with Scientology, man. Like, I don't want to be labeled with their bullshit. No, thank you. No. So I can imagine that to be the case, that even Epstein was smart enough to stay away from Scientology. And, it's not like they had a bunch of like hot to trot chicks in there. It's more like the incels. That's one thing that maybe is good for Scientology, that they are a bunch of incels, a very non-sexy cult. I mean, cults oftentimes have a sexy element, for recruiting. And Scientology will use a little flirting in their initial love bombing stage to get you in. So I'm not saying zero sexy, but I mean, hey, those Sea Org uniforms are not designed, to get your mojo rising, let me say. So Scientology seems more like a Heaven's Gate. Let's cut off our balls and fly to the spaceship. It's more that kind of cult, Wouldn't you guys say? Maybe I should make do I know how to make another, do I know how to make another poll? Okay. Let's do another poll. Is Scientology more like Heaven's Gate? That's the one where they all castrated themselves and unalived themselves so that they could catch the comet to the spaceship, or the spaceship to the comet, or whatever. It was a while ago. But anyway, not a sexy cult, to say the least. Or is Scientology more like Heaven's Gate or Epstein? Place your votes, please. Is Scientology more like Heaven's Gate or Epstein? curious people, inquiring people would like to know, something like that. Epstein's went from 100 to 67. Okay, what's it going to be, people? Is Scientology like Heaven's Gate or Epstein? And my vote would be for Heaven's Gate, but I got to be a little neutral on these political matters. I don't want to influence the vote too much. But now we're 50-50. Okay, people are going a little in my direction, because the idea is that Epstein's cult was about sex, and Heaven's Gate is about spaceships. You see where I'm going here? Scientology is not very sexy. And although Epstein does seem to have some connection to a certain Mr. Spaceship Man, the question is Scientology an Epstein cult, or more like a Heaven's Gate? Let's cut off our nuts, unalive, lie on our backs in a bunk bed, and fly up to the comet. Something you could imagine L. Ron Hubbard thinking of in maybe a more exuberant moment of his creativity. L. Ron, he had some pretty wacky ideas. Well, Epstein is definitely doing well here. Okay, so I'm glad that you're not joining my cult of thought control, saying it's more of a Heaven's Gate thing. That shows that I'm attracting free thinkers to my channel to weigh in on this. Now, Scientology, though, will probably end, and this is more of the Epstein version. Scientology will probably end more like Epstein. And I don't mean the jail incident. I mean the revelations about all the people that are connected and all that. Streets LA is the man, Vinny, another New Yorker. And the OT levels. So the OT levels, are you saying Packy issues? Oh man, are you making me say a bad word in England? Heaven's Gate. Yeah. So Heaven's Gate has different levels. I mean, the UFO comet sci-fi angle is an obvious parallel. But then again, Heaven's Gate is old, so who knows how old people are here on YouTube, don't even know what the hell I'm talking about with Heaven's Gate. But anyway, I don't think Scientology is going to have a big nut removal unaliving party to go meet up with L. Ron, although that is always a possibility with a cult. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's like Epstein, and again, not like the jail part, the final thing of Epstein, but I'm talking about the ongoing Epstein issue. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are connected to Scientology that are going to have some splaining to do. They're going to have to, there are going to be groups like the LAPD that eventually are going to get called on the carpet. Now, our senator, formerly my congressman, Schiff, would not let his office answer any questions about their connections to Scientology. Peter Schiff, is it Peter Schiff or is that a different Schiff? I don't want to say it. It's a Schiff, Senator Schiff. Anyway, so how many politicians look the other way? Adam Schiff, yeah, I think you're right, Lori. Thanks. Adam Schiff, Peter Schiff, yeah, that's the financial dude. Peter Schiff, different, totally different guy. Anyway, thank you so much, Lori. You got that. Adam Schiff. So I went to Adam Schiff's office a couple times asking, for comments on his support of Scientology. And it was like, get the hell out of here. No filming, we're not going to answer your questions, right? You can imagine that being the result of an Epstein thing too. If I would have gone there saying, what are your connections with Epstein? It wouldn't have been like, oh, come right in. We'll talk all about it. Let me be on camera answering. And I'm not saying Adam Schiff has any Epstein connections. I would not know. But the world is changing. People are waking up to the bullshit. I have spiritual explanations, but I don't require them to make my point. And I don't require anybody to believe my spiritual stuff in order to believe or resonate with what I'm saying. Because we could just say it's all the internet, and that would be enough. Because of the internet, everybody can see what's going on more and more and more. And certain dirty people and organizations involved in dirty activities like Scientology, they cannot stand a camera being pointed in their direction. It freaks them out. Just like the ICE agents that want to attack and kill people on the street, they don't like being filmed. They get mad, they get violent because they don't want to be accountable. But the thing is, in the end, whether you believe in Christianity or some other religion, whether you believe in karma, or even if you're an atheist and you realize that you pay for your own actions on some level, no matter what, even without an afterlife or a God or whatever. You pay just by being that asshole and living life and looking in the mirror as that asshole, David Miscavige, Prince Andrew, Diddy, Weinstein, and all these other dickheads that have gone around in the old reality, in the old matrix of hierarchy, and they've abused their position in the hierarchy. And that's why hierarchies are going bye-bye, just like the matrix. It's going bye-bye. But remember, the matrix doesn't go. It's not like in the movie, you take the pill, you wake up in the pod, and all those hoses start popping off of your spine. And, like, that would be a little too much. And they alluded to it in the movie, The Matrix, where, they said something like, well, we usually don't bring somebody over past a certain age because, they just die of shock, basically. Okay. The angels, the divine beings, the mother ayahuasca, whatever, they're padding the process for us. They're slowing it down for us so that we can acclimate to higher frequencies. It's like when you go up in the airplane, you clear those ears out, they pop, and you can hear again. Okay. we are acclimating to a cult-free reality. It might take 100 years to get there. I don't know. Religions are falling apart. Not only Scientology, because Scientology is barely a religion anyway, but they are falling apart. They are losing their relevance in modern society, not because people are less spiritual, but because people are more spiritual, meaning they can go directly to the source and bypass the middleman, which is the religion. And the same goes for politics. People can bypass the gatekeepers, and in the American system, the two-party system, which dumbs everything down and keeps everything under control. They can bypass all of that and go straight to the internet and connect with each other. And the parties are going to be less relevant. Well, it looks like Epstein is winning this poll. Wow, 62% Epstein. Okay. Only 8 votes, though. Hey, could you guys give some likes? That would be awesome if you could. I would really love it. But Epstein is the winner. So you guys think Scientology follows the Epstein mold more? Well, on certain levels, yeah. I can see a lot of parallels between Epstein and Scientology. Otherwise, it wouldn't have even been an option, right? One thing is a kind of slavery. Yeah, Epstein was into that. Scientology's definitely into that. Abusing people, definitely. Now you take the sexual aspect of the Epstein thing out of the equation, and it's not that it's totally out of the equation in Scientology. It's just not the defining feature, because Scientology is more of an incel cult of people who are probably not really getting laid a lot, especially if they're in the Sea Org. But, you know, Scientology is just not, it just doesn't have a sexy vibe. Sorry, Scientology. I'm not saying you don't have some sexy people in there. I've seen a couple, but it's not the vibe, right? And Scientology is just, it's a little too hokey. It doesn't have an ability to update itself, to catch up with the times. And so since they can't really update things, they don't really, you know, they keep having to go back to L. Ron Hubbard and do his stuff as if like there's some magical thing. And the interesting thing with Scientology is that somehow L. Ron Hubbard has the secrets to the universe, but there is no like deity, there is no divine anything. But L. Ron Hubbard knows all the secrets. Like, how do these secrets even exist? Right? Scientology doesn't really go there. Why? Because L. Ron Hubbard didn't go there. And Scientology has no ability to improvise. I mean, if they try, it's just stupid. Oh, thanks for giving that button a touch assist. I'm sure it tingled in extreme pleasure when you did that. Yeah, that's the only reason that's a good reason for Epstein winning this poll, that Scientology gives touch assists. And isn't that what Epstein was all about? Touch assists, assisting royalty, assisting the what do they call, captains of industry with touch assists. Maybe Epstein was working undercover for the Church of Scientology. Hey, I don't know. I'm just possibilities. Maybe Epstein was maybe like a test case of Scientology. What if we go out there and flood the elite of our world with touch assists, very special touch assists? And Scientology also, like Epstein, does not recognize childhood as a thing. I'm starting to see the wisdom of these voters more and more. Epstein doesn't believe in childhood. Scientology doesn't believe in childhood. Interesting. Very interesting. There are many similarities between Epstein and Scientology. Now, Epstein, though, kind of got involved at some levels that Scientology could only dream of. I don't think we have a lot of ex-presidents as deeply connected to Scientology as Epstein. Probably because Scientology wasn't given the level of touch assists that the Epstein crew was giving. Remember, if you're gonna start a cult, you got to make those touch assists very compelling. Very important. So anyway, the matrix is crumbling. And the Epstein situation is exhibit A. And Scientology is at least exhibit B. And so as we watch Scientology fall apart, and we watch governments and monarchies fall apart, try to remember it's all energetically the same thing. Control structures are being eliminated. And the way they're being eliminated is they're being seen for what they are. Because when you see that the Wizard of Oz is just that dude behind a curtain, you end up not being that intimidated by the Wizard of Oz anymore. You end up understanding the game. And when you understand the game, you can't really look at it the same way. It's like if you know how a magic trick is done, you're not going to be blown away when you watch the magic trick. So that's about all I got for today. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. And anybody who hasn't given that thumbs up button a nice touch assist, consider doing that. It would be awesome. And I think I will be back here. I might change my channel name or something to reflect a more global, beyond only Scientology aspect of this. But anyway, the matrix is crumbling. Scientology is a big part of it, but there's more, and that's exciting. See you very soon. Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.